Hello everybody. Today we're going to be doing one-step equations with fractions. So again, we're moving into kind of pre-algebra, getting ready for algebra. We have equations, right? They have an equal sign where we have one expression set equal to another. They have variables, right? Your x, y, z. So far we've been just kind of talking about equations with x, but really any of our unknowns, we can use any letter for an unknown in an equation. And the goal for these is always to solve for that unknown value, okay? How we do that is by isolating the x or other variable that we're using. And that's the main goal when we're solving equations, okay? So just kind of remember, generally equations are like a scale. They have to be balanced. Both sides have to be equal. So if we change one side, if we add 2 of something to one side, we have to make sure that we add 2 to the other side. Or if we subtract from one side, again, if we don't do the same operation on the other side, our scale is going to become unbalanced. Just like, if we multiply or divide, whatever we do to one side, we need to make sure that we're doing to the other side. And that's true with any equation. Before we go into equations with fractions, let's kind of take a step back and remember some of those properties that we all know about fractions. So first, when we're adding and subtracting fractions, we need to make sure that we have a common denominator. So again, the top number is your numerator, the bottom number is your denominator. We need to make sure that our denominators match before we can actually add or subtract fractions. So if this is our equation, we have 1/2 plus 3/4. We need to make sure that our denominators are the same. So I need to multiply my first fraction by 2 to get a denominator of 4. And similar to equations, what I do to the bottom of the fraction, I need to make sure that I do the same to the top. So again, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2. I bring over my other fraction, and now I can add them up to get 5/4. The same is true with subtraction. So again, this is addition and subtraction. I need to make sure I have a common denominator. For multiplication, for multiplying, we need to multiply straight across. And what I mean by that is we need to multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. So if this is my example, I would need to take 2 times 1, my numerator, and multiply them. And then my denominator, 3 times 2 as 6. And then we always do want to simplify if possible. So we could simplify this to 1/3 by, again, dividing the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator, by 2 to simplify. And lastly, just a quick reminder about dividing fractions. When we're in dividing fractions, we need to multiply by the reciprocal. So again, the reciprocal is of 1/2 would be if we flipped both the numerator and the denominator. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1. When we're dividing by fractions, we need to keep the first fraction as is, but then we need to multiply by the reciprocal of the second. So we would flip these and multiply. Before we multiply, you want to try to simplify before you then multiply straight across. So I can take 5 and divide by 5 here and here. And so I get 1 and 1. And now I have simplified to 2 times 1 in the numerator and 1 times 1 in the denominator. Again, don't leave this as 2/1. We want to make sure we're simplifying, and that would be just 2. This is also the keep, change, flip rule, if you've heard of that before. And this is all review from 6th grade when you first kind of mastered this. 7th grade, you continue to practice it. So hopefully this all sounds very familiar. So as you're watching this video, if you need to pause it right now to make sure that you're taking notes and writing down these key pieces, these are all going to be very important when we go to the actual examples in equations. So again, addition and subtraction, we need that common denominator. Multiplication, we're going to multiply straight across with our numerators and denominators. And then division, we need to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So let's look at some examples now with fraction equations. So I have one of each, just so we can kind of look at the process with all of them. So just like when we were solving other equations, I always like to draw my line for the equal sign, and that's something that we haven't really talked too much about, but something that I would start getting used to. Again, these are fairly easy now, but the more complex the equations get, the more you're going to want this structure. So my goal is to, again, isolate x, and in order to do that, I need to use the inverse operation, and I see addition, so the inverse operation of the opposite is subtraction. So I need to subtract 1/2 from both sides. Just like when we were using those algebra tiles, I have a positive 1/2. I would add a negative 1/2, and then that becomes 0, that 0 pair. Okay, so then I can bring my x down. Actually, let's use the same color here. There we go. And now on this side, I have 7 minus 1/2. So again, when I'm adding and subtracting, I need a common denominator. So I'm going to put 7 over 1. And then my common denominator would be 2 in this case. So I need to multiply this fraction by 2 on the top and the bottom. So again, I'm going to bring my x down. And I have 7 times 2 is 14. 1 times 2 is 2. Oops. So 14 minus 1/2. X is equal to 13/2. We can leave it as 13/2, or you can also simplify to 6.5. So I'm going to, again, write my final answer as x equals 6.5. And the last piece that I'm going to have you start doing is checking your answer. So once I have a value for my unknown, it's 6.5. I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug it back into the original and make sure that my left side is equal to my right side. So again, 6.5 plus another half would be 7. My right side is 7. So yes, 7 equals 7. Again, if you want to pause right now, make sure you have this example in your notes, and then I'm going to erase it to have room to do the next one. Oops. Okay, so our next example is going to be x minus 2/3, equal to 1/4. Again, I'm going to draw my line vertically. That's kind of like that scale. We want to make sure that what I do to one side, my left side, I also do to the right side of my equal sign of that scale. Okay, so again, my goal is to isolate x to find out the value of x. So I need to get everything away from that x. So in order to do that, I need to use the opposite, or the inverse operation, which of subtraction is addition. So I need to add whatever is on the same side as x. So add 2/3 to both sides. Again, I'm going to get 0 here. That's my 0 pair. And I just have x on this side. So we're on our way to finding out what x is. And now I need to add my fractions here. So again, when I'm adding and subtracting, I need a common denominator. In this case, we need to multiply the two denominators together to find the common denominator. And you can always do that. So if you're not sure if there's one that they have in common, you can always multiply them by the opposite. So again, this fraction becomes 3 over 12 plus 8 over 12. Again, bring down my equal sign. So x is equal to 11 12. Not sure what happened. Okay, 11 12ths. Again, I'm going to replace this up here and make sure that my answer is correct. And that's the beautiful part of equations, is we can always check our answer. So 11 12ths minus 2/3 equals 1/4. I need to make this a common denominator again to subtract. So I have 11 minus 8 over 12, 1/4. So 3/12 is equal to 1/4. And if I divide both of these by 3 to simplify it, I get 1/4 is equal to 1/4. So yes, I am correct. I have isolated my x and I have solved this equation. So again, pause if you need to write down this example in your notes before we move to our multiplication and division problems. Okay, let's move on to number 3. We have 1/3 x is equal to 4. So now 1/3 is multiplied to x. So if I'm looking at isolating x, I need to use the inverse of multiplication, which would be division. So I need to divide both sides by 1/3. Again, 1/3 divided by 1/3 is 1. And 1 times x is just going to give me x, which is what I'm looking for. So that's good. Okay, so I have 4 divided by 1/3 on my right side of my equation. Remember, when we're dividing fractions, we actually need to multiply by the reciprocal. And that is because 1/3 times 3 over 1 gives me 1, and that's actually going to cancel out that denominator. But what I do to the denominator, I need to do to the numerator. And so now I have 4 over 1 times 3 over 1. Now that I have just a multiplication of fractions, I just need to multiply straight across. And I get 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 1 is 1. And that simplifies to x equals 12. Don't mind the obnoxious baby noises. Okay, again, I want to check my answer, so I'm going to plug in 12 for x up here. So I have 1/3 times 12 equals 4. I'm going to put that over 1. So 12 over 3, because 1 times 12 is 12, and 3 times 1 is 3. And 12 divided by 3 is indeed 4. So yes, I have successfully solved for x. So again, when we're dividing fractions, we need to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/3 is 3 over 1. And then I'm able to multiply straight across because now I have a multiplication of fractions. Okay, go ahead and pause this. Make sure you have this problem written down and any other notes you want to take. Okay, the last example is going to be x divided by 2 equals 1/4. Again, I want to draw my equals, draw a vertical line just to make sure that I keep my left and right straight, and also to keep them balanced. So again, I have x divided by 2, or x over 2. So in order to isolate x, I need to do the inverse or opposite. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So again, 2 divided by 2 gives me that 1, and 1 times x is just x. So that's how we're using that inverse. On this side, I have 1/4 times 2. I can put 2 over 1 to make it a fraction, and then I'm just multiplying straight across numerator and denominator. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4. And then I can simplify to dividing both by 2 to get 1/2. I want to check my answer, so I'm going to plug in 1/2 for x up here. So I have 1/2 divided by 2 is equal to 1/4. Again, I need to actually multiply by my reciprocal here. So I need to multiply by 1/2 on the top and the bottom. This becomes 1. So then 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. So yes, I have solved this correctly. Make sure to write this example down in your notes so you have it for you when you go to do the math space. So the next step is to head to math space and complete the custom task that's called one-step equations with fractions. Again, head to math space and complete the one-step equations with fractions.